Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here. My name is J.P. Crowley. I'm the chairman of the Montana Board of Housing, and we'll go ahead and do some introductions in just a minute. But before we get started, are there any public comments on items that are not on today's agenda? Seeing none, I think Bruce has a couple of announcements, and then we'll do a round of introductions.
All right. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to our 2016 tax credit allocation meeting. So welcome. Just a few housekeeping announcements to remind folks that the restrooms, and you're welcome to get up and use them if you need, are just out that door and down the hallway. Please help yourself to refreshments in the back of the room. We've got some coffee, water, and some rolls. A reminder that the meeting is being recorded, and it's being recorded through our conference call, our webinar. So board members, please bring the microphones close to your face while speaking. And I also want to remind you to push the button to talk. And this is very important, especially during a vote, because it is the official record and how votes are done. And if the public has, or when we're doing public comment, we also need to be at the podium, or if you would like the wireless mic brought to you for whatever reason, we'd be happy to do that. But we do need to use the microphones or it will not be recorded. Did we start the recording, by the way? Okay, thank you. So those on the phones, if we could, I think your lines are muted from the beginning. So if you want to talk, you're going to have to press *2, and then also to mute your phone again to press *2. And if you're not speaking, we encourage the muting of the phone so unnecessary noise is not picked up on the recording. And if you would like to speak, there's two ways you can do that. You can hold your hand up on the webinar and ask to speak, or you can type in a comment or question in the webinar, and Penny would be happy to read those aloud. And you can also unmute your phone and get our attention to recognize you. You can do that either way you would like. So, are there any other announcements that I missed? All right, JP, go ahead.
Okay, we will do a round of introductions so everybody knows who's in the room. Again, I'm J.P. Crowley, and I'm chairman of the Montana Board of Housing.
I'm Bruce Brenstall. I'm the executive director for the board.
Jeanette McKee, board member from Hamilton.
Greg Gould, legal counsel from Helena.
Sheila Rice, board member from Great Falls.
Pat Melby, board member from Helena.
Michael Tolomeo and Zeus with Communities for Veterans.
Adam Gratzer, Communities for Veterans.
Rusty Snow, Summit Housing Group.
Long, Summit Housing Group.
Lauren Moore, Wishrock Investment Group.
Brian Shumway from Wishrock Investment Group in Portland, Maine.
Carson Taylor, Mayor of Bozeman, Montana.
Lucy Brown, Housing Authority of Billings, Red Fox Project.
Jennifer Siegel, Rural Community Assistance Corporation for Courtyard Apartments.
Marnie McCleary, Community Action Partnership, Northwest Montana for Courtyard Apartments.
Eileen Pecars, Rural Community Assistance Corporation, also Courtyard.
Peggy Trank, Montana Coalition for Housing and Infrastructure.
Gene Luer, GL Development with Northstar Apartments.
Becky Brandborg, Echo Enterprises with Valley Villas.
Tim Howard with Howard Construction. Burkhalter, Housing Solutions.
Mark Shrives, Polson City Manager.
Kyle Roberts, City of Polson.
Vicki Bauer, Montana Board of Housing. Mary Palkovich, Montana Board of Housing.
Brian Geyer, HRDC Bozeman.
Anyway, HRDC 9. Heather Grenier, HRDC Bozeman.
Brianna Vine, Great Northern Development, Northstar Apartments. Tori Matajowski, Great Northern Development Corporation with Northstar Apartments.
The Mayor of Wolf Point, Chris DeShock.
Gary McDonald, Roosevelt County Commissioner, here for Northstar Apartment.
Good morning. Chancey Kitson, Executive Director for Blackfeet Housing, Browning, Montana.
Alicia Copeland with Travoy.
Good morning, Andrea Davis with Homeward, Little John Apartments.
Heather McMillan with Homeward, Little Johns and Meadows.
Ken Tolley here for the Meadows in Lewistown, partnering with Homeward.
Janet Tolley with the Meadows, with Homeward.
Ginger Fan Cook with Montana Board of Housing.
Kendra Lloyd with Montana Board of Housing.
Ashley Amato, Montana Board of Housing.
Paula Levy, Montana Board of Housing.
Penny Cope, Montana Board of Housing, and I will announce that there's two Board of Housing staff also on the call. That would be Janine Moss and Danielle Bauer.
Todd Jackson, Montana Board of Housing.
Kelly Guerrilla, Montana Board of Housing.
Rena Oliphant, Montana Board of Housing.
Peter Gray, Benefits Health System with the Cascade Red Project.
Don Sturhan with Mountain Plains Equity Group, based in Billings.
Logan Anderson, also with Mountain Plains Equity Group.
Fred Sturhan with Mountain Plains Equity Group.
Kay Midrow, Executive Director, Aloha Noble House.
Jody Paxton, Lake County Community Housing with Aloha Noble House.
Good morning, Stacy Collette, Montana Board of Housing.
Gerald Fritz with Aloha Noble House.
John Sheldon, also with Aloha Noble House.
Bob Robinson with Human Resource Council out of Missoula and Stevensville.
Jim Morton with the Human Resource Council in Nicole Court.
Stacy M. Hyde from SAFE in Hamilton.
Darren Murphy with Commonwealth Development for Riverview Meadows and Whitefish.
Arlen Wells, Missoula Housing Authority, Nicole Court.
Carol Greenstein, Aloha Noble House Incorporated, here for Noble Homestead at Pablo and God Bless America.
Bob Vanek, Housing Staff.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody that is on the phone call?
Bob Gochi, board member from Ronan.
Doug Carricker.
John Wagner with QTAC Rock, Bond Counsel to the Board of Housing.
Shirley Olson, YWCA Billings.
Lori Collins, Whitefish Housing Authority for Riverview Meadows.
Joe Easton, Jackson Contractor Group in Missoula, Bozeman, and Miles City.
Great, thank you everyone. Okay, we will go ahead and get started with the agenda. Board members, have you taken a look at the minutes from the last meeting?
I'd move approval as sent.
With second.
So board members, I wanted to talk about the minutes just real briefly and kind of a change in how we're handling our minutes for the board. If you've ever been up with the legislature, you'll notice that pretty much every hearing or meeting that they have up there, they use the audio as part of the official record. And they've also actually, just as an example, with the Board of Investments, made a legal requirement that they use audio or some form of something like that to record their minutes. And so, I mean, just to kind of keep up with the Joneses, I guess, we are changing the way we are handling our minutes, and basically we are going to keep and post the audio on our website for our minutes, and the written minutes will be kind of a summary form of minutes with reference to where in the audio tapes you can find that part of the agenda. So I think it'll be a good way for folks to just be able to exactly go back and hear and listen to the discussion that was had with any particular issue. We will be changing our records retention to match this, and this November meeting is the first time we'll be doing that. So just wanted to keep you in the loop, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just have one comment on the, now that you've explained what the minutes are, on the, in that second paragraph on the first page of minutes of the call of meeting to order, tape 1 is at 53:57 is probably not correct if it goes in order.
I think, and Paula, can you, you need to use a mic, but is that 53 seconds, isn't it? That's not 53 minutes.
No, that actually is correct. And the only reason I have it there, and it's fine to move it elsewhere, was that Sheila had mentioned that Kaya would be making the presentation under the public comment. And so, and then Kaya didn't end up showing up until much later. And so I didn't know if that was actually the place that I should put it, except for that was the public comment, not on the agenda.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So it's really not in order necessarily because we did that later in the meeting. So I think it makes sense to leave it there, to be honest with you, because it'll kind of get stuck back in the back. But let's think about that as we do this going forward.
Okay. Any other comments from board members?
The only comment, Paula, you could just put a note at the bottom and suggest and say, for clarity, inserted because it belongs here, but you know, that would be my recommendation.
I will do that. Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We will move on to the finance program update.
Hey, JP, Bob, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Bob.
Thank you. I'll mute then.
Good morning. My name is Ginger Pancook with the Montana Board of Housing. If you turn to your finance section in your notebook, the first thing I'll draw your attention to is the fact that as of the end of November 30th, we had 69% of our funds in money markets, that's what I'm looking for, and which of course is one of the lower income funds. We did have to leave that in until December 1st in order to do our debt service, but I wanted to let you know that we now have moved in December. We had investments of approximately $65 million were made in discount notes with interest rates ranging from 0.3% to 0.63%, or 30 to 60 basis points, depending on the term of the notes. More investments were made for $9 million in rates from 0.35% to 0.66%, 35 to 66 basis points, and those were made during the month of January. These higher rate investments will help our weighted average yield over the next few months, so that's going to look a little bit better the next time we come and talk to you. Needless to say, the next page, which is the maturity rates or maturity dates, all of those 1130s are gone and the 1215s are gone, and the rates are going to be everything from February to the end of December for the investments that we made during December and January. And that's what I have for you. If you have any questions, I can certainly answer them at this time.
Thank you, Ginger. Are there any questions for Ginger? Is there any public comment on the finance program? Thank you. Next up, Vicki Bauer and the homeownership program.
Good morning. The first item on the agenda for me this morning is the approval of a bond resolution. We fully reserved and have almost fully purchased the 2015 B bond issuance that we closed at the end of October. And so we have started taking reservations against a 2016 A bond issuance. The resolution that I have in the board packet allows for $80 million of bonds to be issued. John created this resolution to give us some flexibility. We do have a bond issue, the 2007 A bonds that are callable on June 1st. If we, for $33,133,000. If we decide to wait that long, we will incorporate a refunding into along with new money for loan purchases. But he gave us some flexibility in case we see changes in rates or something and we need to issue bonds for purchases prior to us getting to the point where we can do that refunding. He set it up so that we could do them as two separate bond issues with a total bonds to be issued of $80 million. Currently, or as of the end of December, we had $7.4 million worth of reservations for this new bond issue that we are requesting approval on the resolution for. So if there's no questions from the board regarding the issue, I would request approval for the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I will move approval of resolution number 16-0119-S1.
Mr. Chairman, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there questions or comments for Vicki? Is there any public comment on the bond resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
As far as the homeownership update goes, in the month of December, we took in 44 reservations for a total of $6.6 million for the 7.4 total reservations against 2016 A issuance. Our current lending rate on that money is 3.25. We had 7 reservations for score advantage down payment assistance loans. The interest rate on those loans is dependent on the borrower's credit score. 80% combined program that we do in conjunction with NeighborWorks. We had 3 reservations in that program. Current lending rate on those funds is 4%. You can see our portfolio balance as of the November amortizations consisted of 5,382 loans, little over half of those being FHA, and then the remaining loans being broke down between RD, VA, some non-insured loans, which are down payment assistance loans, and the 80%. We do have some PMI loans left in the portfolio, as well as HUD 184 loans. Delinquency rates are listed on the bottom of your dashboard. And then in the month of December and towards the end of November, we did trainings in conjunction with NeighborWorks and RD. Those trainings were well attended. They were held in Billings, Great Falls, and Missoula. The lenders appreciated getting that information from the 3 organizations. And as we move into the new year, it's home builder show time again. And I've listed the shows that we will currently be represented at. And in conjunction with those home shows, Janine also does lender visits to our participating lenders throughout the state. If there's no questions, that's my update.
Is there any questions for Vicki? Great, thank you, Vicki. And next up is the start of the multifamily program, and I believe Bruce is filling in for Mary today.
I am, and I will do my best to keep this in order. Just so folks know, and Mary asked me to announce this, you know, normally she'd be here as this is probably the most important meeting of her entire year for her programs. Unfortunately, her brother-in-law passed away last week, and his funeral was this morning. And many of you know Mary, and we have a card here if you'd like to sign your name and just wish her well. We'll put it on the end of the table up, and Ashley, if you could come and grab that and just put it on the table there, we'll do that. So the first thing on the agenda for multifamily is the Vista Villa inducement resolution. Is there anyone in the audience from Wishrock? Oh, I'm sorry. There you guys are. Okay, great. And keep me on track and keep me honest here, okay? So Vista Villa is a project in Great Falls, and it is a 96-unit family project. It is on scattered sites across Great Falls, and the project does have project-based Section 8 subsidy. They will be doing a tax-exempt bond issue of approximately $9 million. And part of, I think, why this project became feasible was the receipt of an AHP grant that you guys got here just recently. So John Wagner prepared the inducement resolution for this project. Effectively, what the inducement resolution does is it allows them to incur costs that they can then include in the project costs. The board will see this project again later down the road when we do a full resolution and after they submit a full application that we underwrite. So do you guys have any comments that you'd like to make? And if you do, you can just step up to the podium, or if you don't, that's fine also. You can be available for questions. Are there any questions from the board? So if there are none, I guess staff has reviewed the request for the inducement resolution. The board requests that the staff requests that the board consider the request for the inducement resolution. And if you decide to move forward, we basically recommend approving the attached inducement resolution.
Bruce, I just have one question. On the agenda item, it says estimated $9 million, and in the resolution it says 7.5.
That's right.
Actually, never mind. We've got 2, 7.5 in paragraph 2, and 9 in the top there paragraph. Or maybe John Wagner.
John, do you have that in front of you? Did we just? I think we missed it.
I was going to say I have only the draft of the resolution, which was 7.5. My guess is that it doesn't make much difference whether it's 7.5 or 9, because this is just to protect them on early expenditures, and I would be stunned if their early expenditures exceeded $7.5 million.
Just to be consistent, I think, could we just approve the resolution changing the bottom in the second paragraph to $9 million, and then just that way we'll be consistent?
Sure. You might want to change it at the heading too, which describes the resolution, because the amount is in there.
And I believe in the heading it is correct, and then in the second paragraph it is not consistent. So we would ask that you approve the inducement resolution with that change being made.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the adoption of Resolution 16-0119 MF1 with a change of $7.5 million to $9 million in the second paragraph of the body.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. This is Doug.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any questions for Bruce? Any public comment on this resolution? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, NeighborWorks Great Falls is a partner in this project, so the record should show that I abstained from the vote.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay, motion passes.
All right, thank you, board members. I believe what's next on the multifamily agenda is why most of you are here. Is for the 2016 Housing Credit Awards section. So what I'd like to do is maybe just for everyone's sake walk through how we plan on handling the awards part of this section of the agenda this morning. So essentially the first thing that I will end up doing is I'll walk through and explain the information in the board packet, answering any questions that may arise at that point in time. Kelly Gergula, who has put a lot of time, as well as Mary, into these projects, and I do just kind of want to formally say thank you to them. I mean, they have spent an enormous amount of time and effort on 19-20 applications. It's a lot of work and in a short amount of time. So thank you, Kelly, and thanks to Mary too. They did a drive around Montana, a little walkabout out there apparently, and they took pictures of all of the sites that are out there. So she's going to do her slideshow of that and kind of walk through just some basic information on all the projects. And then we will, after that, do a session where we do public input. And we ask for public input from the public and also from the developers, which is fine. However, we do ask that you not repeat your presentations. If you have something additional to add or some comments you want to add in there, that's fine. But we had the presentations in November, and we can all remember that far back at least. And then we'll the board will go into kind of an executive action session where they will consider and talk about the projects. If they have questions, that's fine. But basically, we'll do motions on approval for projects at that point. So the first thing I wanted to bring your attention to, board members, was there was some additional pages handed out that were on top of your board packets or binders this morning. There was one that basically went through and compared the common space for each project in this round, just for a comparison's sake. Then there were a couple of packets or stapled together packets that I just wanted to make sure when you look at them that these are all not just based on the project that happens to be the first page at the top of it. If you page back through them, these are additional comments or information that was submitted. You can see the first is the big Sky Villas and Belgrade from USDA. Then there's an article that was submitted on Riverview Meadows and Whitefish. Another letter for Riverview Meadows. And then it looks like a letter for Polson Landing down in Polson. The second packet that you got was an article from the Interlake on the Pablo project with a couple of other comments on the Noble House project down in Pablo. Looks like from Lake County and a number of different other letters. So if you would take a look at those, and they are basically pieces that were submitted after the fact that should have been in your binder back in the letters and comments section. Then there's also a letter from Community Action Partnership in Northwest Montana that addresses a scoring issue that I'll bring up as I walk through the packet. Are there any questions so far?
I guess you're up, Kelly.
Okay, all right. Good morning, board members.
Well, I'm not quite done. Sorry.
Sorry.
I'll let you have your spotlight, Kelly. Don't worry.
It's all right, no hurry.
So then, if you're back in the binder, actually, and I think this was at the beginning, but there's a sleeve that has some large sheets in it. If you'd start with that, as far as the board packet goes, and if you just pull that out, I'm going to walk through that real quickly here for you, just to explain kind of how the packet works, and then there's a couple of things that I need to point out at that before I let Kelly on with her presentation. So it's that manila sleeve. Does everyone, can we find, do we have that? Okay. So generally, your packet consists of the stuff that's in the manila sleeve, and then it has the section by project with all of the different letters and things that you had before the meeting and could have reviewed. What we'll be kind of walking through a little bit this morning is the sheets that are on the ledger sheets. So if I could ask you to pull those out and kind of open that up. The first sheet is kind of an individual sheet by itself. I'm sorry. Oh, and you guys should have that same info in the handout that we provided, right? And do we have copies at the back of the room or at the front of the room? If you don't have that, you're more than welcome to help yourself to that. I believe those copies are on smaller sheets of paper, or are they on the big sheets too? Okay, great. So we got copies of that for you. You can walk through this with us if you'd like. So the first large ledger sheet that I'm going to talk about is the housing credits comparative data by project sorted. And you know, as Kelly and Mary went through this vast amount of information, you know, there were certain things that board members had asked about, you know, it kind of are things that in the past that you guys have looked at and considered as part of your decision making. So I'm just going to walk through this sheet real quickly with you guys, but try to point out a few things and actually a couple of clarifications and one correction. So one of the things board members had said that was important to them was kind of shovel ready and construction dates. So by small rural projects, which are the three on the top, are kind of separated out because that's the way it's done within the allocation plan. Cascade Ridge is also separated out as this was a project you funded prior, but they've come in and asked for an additional allocation of credits. And then kind of the last clump of them, and most of them are in the general pool. So this is the date that we anticipate construction starting, and they are just put in order of when that construction would start. Of course, cost per unit by set aside, you know, and you can, it's kind of self-explanatory there as far as cost per unit. Likewise, cost per square foot, we just went ahead and ordered them from lowest to highest. Credits per square foot, same thing. And then the percent paid of each project by the housing credit. So you can see some projects, their total construction or their total project cost is being paid more or less in order there. As we're down on the second row, the evaluation criteria, there is a correction that we do need to make here that we missed in the evaluation. Again, these are the scoring criteria and the points, and they are put in lowest or in order from highest to lowest. The correction that we do need to make is on Courtyard. They are down, highlighted Courtyard in blue. They have 1,245 points. There was an issue where they do have under contract section 811 project-based rental subsidy, which would allow them access to 10 more points. So their total would be 1,255, and they should be up between the Meadows and Rose Park in the scoring evaluation. And if you want some more information on that, that is the letter that was handed out before the meeting, and you should have in front of you. I'm sorry? We'll walk across too on debt service ratio. This is again just in order by kind of where the debt coverage ratios came in. Operating expenses per unit. You can kind of see where projects are coming in that and put in order from lowest to highest. Vacancy rates in the areas You can see, again, from lowest to highest. And then on new unit demand, and this information for both of these areas was taken out of the market studies. And one of the areas that I wanted to bring your attention to was the new unit demand for Gateway, Vista, and Red Fox. They're both in Billings. And I guess theoretically, you'd think those numbers would be the same. The information the market analyst explained to us was that because of the unit mix and the rent levels, they came up with the numbers, you know, that were different. You know, I think Lucy had brought this to our attention, who is with the Billings Housing Authority and is with Red Fox, and kind of wanted just to bring that to your attention. You know, it seems like, I guess the real answer is they need quite a few units in Billings, and the exact number can be argued as to how they came up with that. So, are there any questions on this analysis? Any comments the board members would like to make?
I'd like to thank the staff. This is an enormous amount of analysis. It saves us tons of time, so thank you to all of the staff for the work they did on this.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. You guys really did a great job. So the next thing I want to talk about is the two packets that are in here. Up here, we kind of have enough room to lay these kind of end to end. But if you look at them, the two packet 1 of 2 and packet 2 of 2, you know, basically the board can kind of look across here and see all 19 projects that they're looking at today. And as you follow these columns down on each one of these projects, there is an enormous amount of information there at your fingertips. So if you do have questions, or you know, we may be able to point you to the information here in your packet that'll answer those for you. Or as you have looked through these, you know, we hope that this has been useful for you. And each of the packets has, I didn't count the pages, but I think there's 3, 4, 5, 6 pages that basically walks through each of these projects on unit mix, on targeting. It talks about what the rents are, what the expenses are by category. It talks about the financing sources, what the sale on credits is going to be, the debt coverage ratio, total project costs. It talks about the project cost limitations. It talks about cost per unit and the comparisons there by square foot. And then it goes through by scoring criteria what each of the projects scored. And then I think we might have actually had an extra page on the back here, but so there's an enormous amount of information there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or if there's any confusion there. But I just wanted to go through kind of how these two packets work, and hopefully that wasn't confusing for you guys. And then the very last piece is some information that the board had asked about as part of our Exhibit G to our allocation plan, supplemented by a kind of a sheet that Mary and Kelly put together on past projects in the communities we're talking about. The Exhibit G kind of gets updated once a year, and it's been probably over a year that it was. So this front page coupled with Exhibit G gives you a lot of information on exactly some of the demographics that are out there, but also where we've done projects in the past and how many credits and units we've done. So I think, unless there's any questions, then I will let Kelly let into her presentation.
All right. Good morning, board members, chairman, attendees. So we'll just go ahead and go across the spreadsheet, the big spreadsheet that you guys have, the packets. They're just kind of in order of that, so it's easy for you guys to follow along as we go through these. So the first one we have is Little John, and it's in Big Fork. The developer is GMD and Homeward. They're nonprofit. They're in the small nonprofit set aside. The credits that they're requesting, $2,625,390 It's a family property, and it's acquisition rehab. All right, and then the next one is Big Sky Villas and Belgrade, and it's with the HRDC, and then they're also a nonprofit. They're in the small project pool. They are requesting 2,680,000 credits. It's a family property, and it is also acquisition rehab. Next, we have Noble Homestead in Pablo, and the developer is Aloha Noble House. They are a nonprofit. They're also in the nonprofit set aside. They're asking for 2,680,000. It is a family property, and it is new construction. Next one is Cascade Ridge 2 in Great Falls. The developer is Benefice and CR Builders. They are nonprofit. They're in the general. They're asking for 319,730. It's elderly new construction. As you can see, these are their latest construction photos. The next one we have is Aspen 3 in Butte, and the developer is the Butte Housing Authority and Thomas Development. They're a nonprofit. They're in the general pool. They're asking for 5,185,610. It is family and new construction. Next, we have Courtyard Apartments in Kalispell. The developer is Recapitalization MT Rural Integrity. They're a nonprofit in the general pool. They're asking for 3,539,270. It is family and it is acquisition rehab. Next, we have Nicole Court in Stevensville. The developer is Missoula Housing Authority and Garden City Neighbors, nonprofit in the general pool. They're asking for 3,315,820. It is elderly and new construction. Next, we have Riverview Meadows in Whitefish. The developer is Commonwealth. They are for-profit. They're in the general pool. They're asking for 6,700,000. It is family and new construction. Next, we have Meadow Senior in Lewistown. The developer is Thies and Talley. They're for-profit in the general, asking for 3,533,810. This is an elderly project, and it is acquisition rehab. Next, we have Gateway Vista in Billings, and the developer is the YWCA. They are nonprofit. They're in the excuse me. In the general, they're asking for 4,157,760. It is family and new construction. Next, we have Polson Landing in Polson. The developer is Housing Solutions. They are for-profit. In the general, 6,150,000. It's family and new construction. Next, we have Northstar in Wolf Point. GL Development is the developer. It is for-profit. In the general, 5,900,000, family and new construction. And this one will be in the same location as the previous Wolf Point project that was in before, just so you guys know it'll be the same piece of land. The next one is Rose Park in Bozeman, and the developer is Summit and the HRDC. They are for-profit. They're asking for 6,587,500. It will be elderly and new construction. Next is Timber Meadows in Kalispell, and the developer is Emmanuel CR Builders. They're a nonprofit. They're asking for 6,700,000. This is a senior project and is new construction. Next, we have Red Fox in Billings, and the developer is the Billings Housing Authority. It's a government entity, and they're asking for 3,395,880. It is family and new construction. Next, we have Valley Villas in Hamilton. The developer is Echo Enterprise. It is for-profit, and they're asking for 5,603,920. It is family and an acquisition rehab. Next, we have Stour Commons in Miles City. The developer is Housing Solutions, for-profit, 4,450,000. This will be a family property and will be new construction. Next, we have Freedom's Path at Fort Harrison. The developer is Community for Veterans. It is a for-profit, $6,704,660. This would be family and also acquisition rehab. And last but not least, we have Blackfeet 6, which is in Browning. The developer is Blackfeet Housing. It's a government entity, and they're asking for $6,623,400. This is family and new construction, and there'll be single-family homes. Do board members have any questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Kelly. Good job with that little tour. Just for your information, what I'd like to do, at least if it's okay with you, is as we do public comment, we kind of go in order of the projects along the top of your big sheets. We did these basically by a random number generator, so that's exactly the reason. There's no reason why they're in this order other than that. That's just where it came up. So the last one, and it seemed to work well, and it seemed to be fair to everyone, especially with this many projects. So at this point, I think if we could just start working our way across the projects and doing public comment would be our next thing on the agenda.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start with Big Fork and Little John project.
Good morning, board members. Andrea Davis with Homeward and GMD for the record. At risk of not repeating anything from our previous presentation in November, just here to let you know that we are here in the audience and on the phone for any questions that you might have. You have a lot of hard decisions today. We certainly don't envy you. We think this is a great project and certainly worthy of being funded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Tracy Minuet with HRDC representing Big Sky Villas. I want to thank you for your time in reviewing all the applications. I think our application tells our story very well, so as well, not to belabor the point, I do just want to announce that we were able to identify an additional funding source that will help us take the building from electricity to gas. So we think that that's going to have some great significant cost savings. Our home grant was submitted in early November. We're looking forward to hearing on that and have every reason to believe that we will receive that upon award of tax credit. I think that our project score speaks to both the need and necessity or the need and the quality of this program. Our market has incredibly low vacancy rates and very high prices. And we believe that while this project would not go to market overnight, it is an absolute certainty that it will go to market. That housing tax credit program is really the only way for a developer to come in and rehabilitate this project in the way that it needs. Our rehab list is not a wouldn't it be nice or a preventative. We have many components that are past their useful life in this project. So we, again, thank you very much for your time and preserving this resource for the Belgrade community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board questions? Okay, up next is Noble Homestead.
Long way to get to the microphone. Sorry about that. Noble Homestead really doesn't have anything additional to add. We like our project. We certainly like the community. but we'd like to take this time to thank the staff for all of the evaluation that they've done. We think it's a great thing to add to our continuing program here. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have Cascade Ridge 2 up in Great Falls.
Peter Gray with Benefits Health System. We won't say a lot either. I will just say on the large sheet about the vacancy percentage where it's 1.7, we do have a very high demand rate for our units. You guys have funded all the elements of this project already, and it's extremely high demand in that area. We want to continue to serve those residents. Thank you for all the work that you've done.
Thank you. Aspen 3 in Butte. Is there anybody on the phone from Aspen 3? Okay, we'll move on to Courtyard Apartments up in Kalispell.
Hi, Eileen Pecars with Rural Community Assistance Corporation, and we're partnering with Cap Montana on Courtyard Apartments. You've got a letter in front of you about points that Bruce went over. We do get the 10 extra points for the rental assistance, and so that brings us up to 1255. But also in that, we explained the debt service ratio. We included an explanation in our project application about the debt service ratio, and it does look real high, and that comes from two factors. One is that we've got a full property, so we've got tenants in place, many of whom are paying lower rents than our pro forma rents. And for that reason, we are not giving them some big dramatic rent increase that would displace them. They're going to get just standard sort of 2% annual rent increases. So it's going to take a number of years until some of those tenants transition out of the property. And therefore, our actual income is less than the pro forma income. And therefore, the actual achievable rents in the first year are about $18,000 less annually than what shows in the pro forma. So our actual debt coverage ratio in year one, our best guess, if we have all those tenants the day we open, is 1.41, not the higher one that's shown on your sheet. And then secondly, we used a 2% increase annually in income and a 3% annual increase in expenses like our investor requires. So the debt coverage ratio actually shrinks over time. And we set the debt payments and the size of the loan so that it would be sustainable and stay above 115 for the full 15, 16 years of the loan. So just wanted to throw that explanation out there. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Okay, we'll move on to Nicole Court in Stevensville.
Good morning. My name is Jim Morton. I'm the director of the Human Resource Council. And I know there's three of us standing here, and you're probably thinking, oh my God, but our team decided to come up in case you had any questions. We have our architect, Bob Robinson, here, and we have the individual who worked very hard on the application, Harlan Wells. This is the second time that we have brought you Nicole Court. On your sheet, it indicates that it's a application by the Missoula Housing Authority and Garden City Neighbors. Actually, it's an application from 4 nonprofits, the Human Resource Council and the Missoula Housing Authority, Garden City Neighbors, and Capital Opportunities are the 4 nonprofits that are bringing this to you. The land for this project has been donated, which is a factor that you all have said that you'd like to see coming before you, and we've done that. And this project will be the only second tax credit project in Stevensville. The last project in Stevensville, Montana, was in 1990. So we hope there are questions from you, and either Bob, Harlan, or myself would welcome any questions that you may have during the course of your discussion, and good luck with the work ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to know what happened to the picture of Remy, the dog that you were supposed to put in there.
Okay, moving to Riverview Meadows up in Whitefish.
Board members, thanks for the opportunity to be here again. I'm Darren Murphy with Commonwealth Development. I want to address two things quickly here. The need in the market study is low relative to some other projects, but I think what the market study didn't capture is the hundreds of jobs that went unfilled this summer because people had no place to live. So nobody moved to Whitefish, those jobs didn't get filled, and the vacancy rate is low as it's documented in the market study. So it's impacting economic development, it's impacting small businesses, and there's been several articles that support the tremendous need there. The second thing I want to address is we do have some opposition with the project. It's clear that there's been no funds allocated to Whitefish since 2002. It's a difficult place to develop. We're going to have opposition anywhere we go in that town. There's a community behind the site that is raising some issues with our zoning, but there's a letter in the application that states that we're allowed to do what we're doing per the code, and the city is supportive. It's a little confusing in that we're only buying half the site that they're opposed to. There's a developer doing some development on the back half of the site that they don't like either, so we're kind of tossed into that. We've been working with those folks closely. We've had several meetings. We had a conference call in December. We think we have a path towards a solution, so just wanted to state our position there. It is a difficult place to develop. There's always going to be some folks that aren't happy with what we want to do, but again, I think the need is there. It's been well documented, and thanks for taking the time to review our application.
Thank you. Let's see, we're up to the Meadows Senior Apartments in Lewistown.
Good morning, board members and staff. Thanks for all the hard work going through all these. To be brief, as we've been setting a good tone this morning, my name is Heather McMillan, and I'm with Homeward. My only clarification on some of the information provided is on the vacancy rate regarding the Meadows. It's a senior project in Lewistown, Montana, and it actually has a 0% vacancy and a wait list for those, and this is more of a gross for the community. So it's an easy one to clarify, and more importantly, I wanted to make sure to introduce Ken and Jan, who were unable to make the presentation meetings there in November. They are the current owners, and they have a very large portfolio, and they're usually the owners and the developers, so partnerships are new, but we're very excited to be talking with them about this project.
Thank you. My name is Ken Tolley. I have been an owner of the Meadows for more than 30 years. It's a wonderful property, wonderful community, wonderful residents, and the residents are very hopeful of the improvements that the selection would permit. And we're looking forward in partnership with Homeward to really provide the services to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Gateway Vista in Billings.
Good morning. My name is Don Sturhan with Mountain Plains Equity Group, and just as a reminder, YWCA of Billings is the nonprofit sponsor of Gateway Vista. We're pleased to be working with them on development consulting and syndication of the tax credits. We're asking for a little over $415,000 in annual tax credits. In November, the CEO of the YWCA, Mary Lee Olson, provided the presentation, so I won't go back over those facts. But again, this is a 24-unit multifamily housing project to be built on the campus of the YWCA in Billings. It's intended to complement the shelter home that they now have in place and to help them to broaden their services for those in need in the Billings community. So we appreciate your hard work and would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Mary Lee Olson, CEO of YWCA. I wanted to add to Don's comments that, as was noted, Gateway Vista represents the highest score in new unit demand, meeting inventory and supply where it's critically needed. Billings is the largest community in the state, but has not had an affordable housing project since 2009. What I pointed out in my presentation in November is that this represents not only affordable housing, but a huge bundle of wraparound services that are desperately needed to support victims of violence and people who live in poverty in our community. And since I presented to you, we have added on-site legal services with an attorney to help our tenants with orders of protection and matters, legal matters, civil matters relative to poverty. We certainly appreciate all that the board and the staff have done in evaluating all these projects and are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Polson Landing.
Good morning, members of the board. Alex Burkhalter from Housing Solutions. Just a quick observation for those of us who have been in this arena for a while. Jim has now gone 2 meetings without making a University of Montana Go Grizz comment. So I'm going to carry that torch. Go Grizz. I noticed that board member Melby has his Grizz shirt on today, so just all take note. Again, we're here with Polson Landing, and just a minor thing I wanted to note, the packet 2 of 2, it doesn't indicate, we do plan on having a manager's unit. That wasn't included in the count. I'm sure it's just a simple, it's important for the tenants and the health of the property. But yeah, just happy to be here for Polson, and look forward to working with you on this project. I can appreciate the difficulty and decisions, but yeah, to hear from some members of the community is probably better than me all the time.
Good morning, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to address you regarding the Polson Landing project application submitted by Alex Burkhalter, representing Housing Solutions. I'm Mark Shrives, the city manager for Polson. It was several months ago that Alex gave me a call and we started discussing affordable housing possibilities in the city of Polson. It was coincidental that the city commission had just finished discussing the need for affordable housing within the city. After my discussion with Alex, I scheduled him to give a presentation to the city commission. That initial presentation has resulted in his application and my appearance before you today. I can say it has not been an easy road for him. After his first presentation, Alex came back to the commission at least 3 more times to explain his proposal and how housing tax credits work, and to answer questions and concerns of not only of some of the city commissioners, but also some of our citizens. In the end, the city commission felt confident to support the project, as you can see in the letter of support signed by Mayor Heather Knutson. I also understand there was an additional letter, and I think it was one of the ones that was handed out this morning, of support that was submitted separately by one of our city commissioners, Todd Erickson. If you've read his letter, I think you will see this was not just a slam dunk for Alex to present this project to the commission and then get a rubber stamp of approval. The commission put a lot of thought into this and listened to not only Alex, but the many citizens who spoke for and against this project. One concession that we did discuss was the establishment of a payment in lieu of tax or PILT agreement that we will put in place as the project moves forward. This seemed to be one of the major concerns that we were able to address during our meetings. Why is this project important to the city of Polson? So basically over the last 3 to 4 years, Polson has seen a tremendous increase in commercial property development, particularly on the south end of the city in an area known as the Ridgewater development and areas surrounding the Ridgewater development area. Starting with the expansion of the Walmart store into a super Walmart, we have also seen the addition of an AutoZone, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, a new Red Lion Hotel, McKenzie River Bar and Grill, expansion of a Valley Glass, a local business, the opening of Taco Bell, which I understand has broken all records and by everybody going there. It's been interesting. Walgreens, Murdoch's, and several other retail businesses that are either under construction or planned. In addition, Kalispell Regional Hospital has opened a new medical clinic in the same area, and as we speak, St. Luke's Hospital and a dialysis clinic are also under construction. Polson has definitely become a regional hub in our area of the state. Of course, with all this new commercial development comes the need to house the new workers and their families. Understanding the wages that are paid in many of these service type industries, Housing Solutions proposal for affordable housing and the opportunity provided by your board could not have come at a better time for the city of Polson. Speaking as a representative for the Polson City Commission, we strongly support this project and highly recommend that the Polson Landing project be one of your selections to move forward for funding. Thank you very much for your time today.
Good morning, board members. I'm Kyle Roberts, the city planner for the city of Polson. Adding upon to what Mark just said about the great need for affordable housing in Polson, I'd just like to mention two important points. First, speaking from a long-range planning perspective, I'd like to share with you that the goal number 4, the Polson growth policy, states the following: to encourage the development of additional housing units for low-income and elderly populations by providing incentives for the development of affordable and special needs housing when approving new developments. So this 35-unit Polson Landing affordable housing project will directly address this policy goal. The second thing I want to quickly mention is the demonstrated need for affordable housing as evidenced by the May 2015 mini market survey in Polson that was submitted along with the Polson Landing application. The study found that of the 6 low-income restricted housing complexes in Polson, all 6 complexes were 100% occupied, and they all included waiting lists as well. 4 months after this study was conducted, I personally made phone calls to all of these housing complexes to verify that the numbers were correct. And indeed, each one of them, all of these were correct. They were all completely filled with waiting lists. Additionally, I'd just like to highlight that the study found that the greatest need in Polson would be for units at 40 to 49% area median income. This is the demographic that Polson Landing would serve. Polson Landing would address a great need in the community, and given the results of the market study, as well as what our growth policy says, the Polson Landing project makes great sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is the Northstar development in Wolf Point.
Good morning, board. I'm the mayor of Wolf Point. My name is Chris DeShock. For the past 4 years, I know it's new or not news to you guys, the city of Wolf Point has been struggling with affordable housing, especially coming here and being awarded in 2013 LIHTC funds to build a apartment complex similar to the one that we are building now. Through unforeseen issues, none of them associated with the city, we were unable to build that. The need is still there. The need is probably greater than it's ever been. Having never had an affordable housing project built in Wolf Point, using this is a testament to the need that we do have. It's, I guess, just saying that we need it. We've been dealing with this for a long time, and we are still here fighting to try to get this thing built. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tori Matajowski. I was unable to attend this meeting in November, so thanks for another opportunity to speak. I'm the Executive Director for Great Northern Development Corporation. We're an economic development district and a CRDC. We work very closely with the City of Wolf Point and Roosevelt County for any sort of community and economic development projects. We are a nonprofit, and I know I noticed in the paperwork that the project is listed as a for-profit. GNDC is a general partner, and so we were a nonprofit in the application process. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate that. Originally, we were not that involved. We were assisting the city with their home grant for this project, but after the first attempt, our board has decided that we couldn't just let it go. We had to keep fighting for the City of Wolf Point. They have not had any new housing, stick-built, rental, affordable, safe housing in 30 years. So we knew this was a need. We thankfully had Jean come in to help us and answer our questions and help us pinpoint where we needed to go to move forward and to keep working to bring housing to our community. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with you in the future more. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brianna Vine. I'm the housing specialist with Great Northern Development and also the grant administrator for the City of Wolf Point's $750,000 home grant that makes up a portion of the total project cost. And I just want to express the support that we have received from the home program, the staff there, to move forward with this project. We received the home grant, the City of Wolf Point received the home grant in 2013, and they have stayed with us through every challenge and every up and down and continue to move forward. So I also want to reiterate how Tori mentioned it's been 30 years since we've seen any new construction, and without this funding, I truly fear that it will be another 30, if not more, that we see anything. And the eyes on the ground for new unit demand is tremendous. I receive daily calls, and without this, there's nowhere up. So this is truly our opportunity to make this project happen. 4 years in the making, and we're still here. So stick with us. Thank you.
Good morning. Like Gary McDonald, Roosevelt County Commissioner, and I'd like to thank the staff and the board for all the time you put in. I'm up here to support this project. It is really needed in Wolf Point. In fact, one of the most conservative commissions in the state of Montana sent me up here because they think it's that important. So, yeah, and you got to know my other two commissioners, how tight you are. So I just wanted to let you know that this is a very important project for Roosevelt County and Wolf Point. Not just Wolf Point. It's going to affect Roosevelt County. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Gene Luer with GL Development, the developer on the project. I think the other important thing, it's new construction. Per se, there's no rent subsidy in the project. The rents are set to accommodate the fair market rent levels of tenant-based Section 8 in eastern Montana. And at least to date, most of those rent subsidies have, there's a lot of rent subsidy available out there just because of the rent levels that still remain in eastern Montana. So our hope is to have many of the units occupied by folks with tenant-based rent subsidy. And again, I mean, it's just having spent some time in that community recently, the fact that they've not annexed any property into the city for development in 30 years is a real contrast to some of the other communities. So they look at this thing, A, for housing, and B, I think in part to give a shot in the arm to the rest of the community in terms of development. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Next up is Rose Park in Bozeman.
Good morning. My name is Carson Taylor. I'm the mayor of Bozeman, and I appreciate you spending the time to listen to us today. As you know, a lot of people want to live in Bozeman, and that drives the price of apartments up. We care about senior housing, and this is a senior housing project. It's a priority for the commission, and most recently, the Bozeman Daily Chronicle filed a story saying that they felt it was a priority as well for Bozeman. Let me talk about my mother-in-law for a second. How many people like to talk about their mother-in-law? My mother-in-law just turned 90. And for a long time, she and her husband lived in rural environments because they really liked it. But as they got older, they moved closer and closer till finally in 1984, when she was 84, 6 years ago, they moved to Bozeman because they needed to be near medical services and they needed to have access to them. My father-in-law died shortly thereafter, but while my mother-in-law doesn't require this service, a low-cost apartment for seniors, I believe there are plenty of seniors out there that do, that need to live in a city with good access to medical care. This particular project is on a bus stop for Streamline Bus, a free service that also goes to the hospital in the area where most of the doctors are. So it's a really important thing for people who are seniors that want to have access to medical care as they move closer to that care that they need. The wait list at this point will still exist. There will still be people on the wait list after this project is built if you all grant the application, but it will put a dent into it in any case. As you recall, there are leveraged points here because there's construction from a project that you approved last year going on right now, and it would just flow right into the next project, which is right near it. It's a multi-generational project, which has its advantages as well. And the final piece from me is the city is as into this as it can be. We've taken $18,010 out of our budget, which is all that was remaining to put into this project, and that last $10 hopefully demonstrates the depth of our commitment to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Board. My name's Rusty Snow, and I'll be real brief. Couple of things that I wanted to hit on were, the public-private partnership that we have with the city and HRDC. This is extremely important to us and was highly successful in creating efficiencies on the project. As the mayor mentioned, we do have another project being built right now. Those efficiencies are going to just roll right into that. And I think that's a big thing for the board to look at when we've got 20 applications out there is how do we best utilize these resources that are limited, unfortunately. The other topic that I wanted to touch on was last year we submitted an application at 0.1% vacancy across the board. That includes conventional houses, everything in Bozeman. It is still currently 0.1, and that's 0% in both LIHTC family and LIHTC senior. Obviously, we'd be focusing on the senior project. That is a pretty staggering number for a city the size of Bozeman to have that little vacancy. And so that need and that need for housing units on the ground is hugely important. We think this 42 units of senior will help aid that. I don't think it'll put a dent, but it'll aid it. So appreciate your time.
Thank you. Timber Meadows up in Kalispell.
Thank you. My name is Don Sturhan with Mountain Plains Equity Group. And again, just as a reminder, the Timber Meadows project and proposal in Kalispell is sponsored by Emmanuel Lutheran Communities, a nonprofit that's been a long history of operations in the Flathead Valley. We are also acting as their co-partner and syndicator of the tax credits. Again, in November, the presentation was made by the executive director of Emmanuel Lutheran, Jason Kronk. So I will not repeat the issues and the points, but I think just in summary, so one of the things we're most proud of with this project is it was really inspired by Cascade Ridge in Great Falls and the same type of motivation that Benefis Health System had in trying to bring the low-income senior community into their array of services. That's exactly what's going on with Emmanuel Lutheran. They've been providing senior services in Kalispell for some time, independent living, assisted living, memory care, but for the first time, the low-income housing tax credit program has given them the opportunity to integrate the low-income seniors into their array of services. So it's an important new spoke in the wheel, if you will, and providing services to seniors in Kalispell and that Flathead Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We move on to Red Fox in Billings.
Good morning to you all. There's just a couple things that I wanted to point out. I should tell you my name first. It's Lucy Brown. I'm with the Housing Authority of Billings, and I'm representing the Red Fox project. There are two things that I wanted to point out in looking at the additional charts that are put on here besides the evaluation criteria. And it's pretty much the same as the lady who spoke before to me who had a higher debt cover ratio. The Housing Authority had looked at the loans that quotes that we got in from our RFP and decided that we would not at this point negotiate only with the bankers only if we were to be funded or receive an allocation. And so when we looked at this, some of them dropped, some of the private ones dropped to 0.89% debt ratio cover, 1.4, et cetera. And so the Housing Authority put in that they would fund their own loan at 3.25, and by the time it runs its full course, the average will be between 1.15 and 1.2. But we do plan on going back and negotiating with the private lenders if we receive an allocation. So I did want to point that out. That's why that looks high. And the second thing is, on the demand, I didn't realize, because of course I didn't see the other person's score, that the rent ratios were indicating that people within a certain income level or strata would be shown as higher for Gateway Vista. But I think what's left out here in the study, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Greg Fahey, who did both of our market studies, is that project basing means that anybody who is from 0 to 50% will be served, and we're 100% project basing those units. So I think that was overlooked. I could be wrong. I don't think so. Also, the other thing that I'd like to point out is we're very proud and pleased that we received the highest score for our new construction project. And I thank the staff for all their hard work. They do an excellent job on going through all these numbers, and they're very gracious if you have concerns. And I think they should be applauded. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Valley Villas in Hamilton.
Good morning, board members. I'm Becky Brandborg with Echo Enterprises, here to talk about the Valley Villas apartment complex in Hamilton. I'm not going to repeat anything I shared with you at the last meeting, but I'm very pleased to introduce Stacy Umhe with SAFE in Hamilton. It's the domestic violence shelter and advocacy nonprofit.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here to ask you to help our community preserve this housing stock for the people that we serve. SAFE is as Becky said, a nonprofit providing services for domestic and sexual violence survivors. Primarily, over the last couple of years, we've seen our services necessarily evolve, where we find ourselves serving more homeless individuals as well. And we identify in our community a great need for affordable housing. Every year we serve about 50 people, 50 families in our emergency shelter, and Traditionally, about 85% of those families have been coming to us because they need safe emergency shelter. During the first quarter of this year, which started in July, over half of the people seeking shelter at our program were doing so because they simply had no place to live. We've relied on Valley Villas for many years as a referral source. We also offer a transitional housing program where folks can stay for up to 2 years. It's a Board of Housing project as well. When we initially built our project, our goal was folks could stay with us for 2 years while their names came up on the Section 8 waiting list. As you know, the Section 8 waiting list is now many more years than 2, so people literally have no place to go. Our program is typically full with a waiting list of 13 to 20 families waiting for housing. So we rely heavily on Valley Villas. It's one of the few programs in our community other than ours where folks can pay 1/3 of their family income for rent. We just had a family in our emergency shelter just a couple days ago who was denied housing by a low-income housing project in our community because although she works 30 hours a week, she doesn't make enough money to qualify even for low-income housing. So the needs of families in our community are dire, and we worry that we're going to lose this really important resource. So I want to encourage you to support the resource. Now I'm going to put on my glasses, and I'm going to become not Stacy Umhigh from SAFE, but John Fills from Ravalli Head Start. John had hoped to be here today. He couldn't be here today, so he sent some remarks. I'm not going to read through them, but essentially Head Start serves low-income families in Ravalli County as well. John has identified that at various points of the year, up to 25% of the families they serve are homeless, and he points out in his letter that about 12% of the children that they serve actually lived at Valley Villas last year. So he also wanted to encourage you to support this project, and I don't know if I can give this letter to someone. Thanks.
I believe Mayor Jerry Steele, the mayor of Hamilton, is on the phone. Jerry, are you there?
If you need to press *2 to unmute your phone.
I will check on his availability. He might have had to move on to his next meeting. Thank you. I just wanted to also point out that, Bruce, were you getting ready to say something? Okay, sorry. That 29 of the 34 units are project-based subsidized. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next we will have Stour Commons in Miles City.
Morning again, Alex Burkhalter from Housing Solutions, resident of the highways and byways of Montana. As you know, Miles City is its second application. We wanted to get this in along with Polson. The city did ask that we make a second attempt when we weren't funded in 2015. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Alex. Alex, what relationship is there between the need for housing and the oil and gas development in the Bakken?
That's a great question, and admittedly, as we're working on a project also in Dickinson, North Dakota at this time, when we turned this in, we did not anticipate headlines every day of oil prices falling. So regrettably, one of the changes in this application from 2015 to this year was there was an increase in the vacancy in the market rate. So they are seeing some softening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Freedom's Path at Fort Harrison.
Good morning, board members. Thank you for this opportunity. I definitely see there's a great need for affordable housing across the state of Montana. I feel like I've really gotten to know this state over the past 3 years or so. Coming up here, I enjoy it every time. Love seeing the mountains. I flew up from Florida last night. Freedom's Path. President of the United States announced an initiative to end homelessness among veterans in 2011. To end homelessness among veterans. The VA Secretary also announced this initiative in 2011. The VA recognizes that they cannot accomplish this mission on their own. It's going to take entire communities and government organizations to accomplish this. With that announcement they made, several government departments are coming on board. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has awarded 42 HUD-BASH vouchers for this project. The VA is also contributing $2.5 million to the project. This is all part of the Enhanced Use Lease initiative by the VA. We have right now a 5-year lease with the VA. We're on our 5th year now. Once we get secure the financing, then the VA will enter into a 75-year lease. I fear that if we don't get this project funded this year, that the VA will not contribute the $2.5 million, and they definitely won't sign the long-term lease with us. So this is the year, hopefully it'll get funded. It will be a great asset for the whole state of Montana. There are veterans traveling all across the state to receive specialized care right there at the Fort Harrison VA Hospital. It's a lot of support within the community here. The mayor of Helena supports it. There's mayors from other cities that signed support letters for this. There was a forum on ending homelessness among veterans in Helena in October. Eric Amundsen, the state director of HUD here, was hosting that forum. At least 30 or 40 people showed up for that, and they're all thinking of ways to accomplish this mission. And a big portion of that conversation was Freedom's Path at Fort Harrison. Just being located right there on the campus will be just monumental for veterans who need that close access to the care, all the services the VA provides, and just living among other veterans. I'm a veteran. I served in Iraq in 2003. My good friend here, Mike Tolomeo, he's a veteran, served in Afghanistan. We can both speak to what that peer support means to live among other people that have lived through similar circumstances in their life. And once you see some of those other veterans going through the programs that are going to be provided there, and seeing them accomplish their goals and achieve success in their lives, it'll be huge. We worked in close collaboration with Dave Parker in the Montana Department of Commerce. That's the Public Housing Authority, who's going to be administering the HUD-BASH vouchers to the project. So we really appreciate all the support from the Montana Department of Commerce. So I think this is a great need. This is the year. Hopefully it will get funded, and appreciate all your all's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Tolomeo with, Freedom's Path, Communities for Veterans. How y'all doing again? Good to see everybody here safe and sound. Weather's been pretty nasty lately. Good thing we had good roads yesterday. Well, I'm not going to reiterate a whole lot of what I had to say last time. Everybody knows I'm highly passionate about this project. I have been for the last 3 years. Well, one thing I'm going to hit on, Adam said about the HUD-BASH vouchers for the project. They are especially allocated to stay with the project. Veteran comes in, veteran stays, veteran leaves. Those credits stay, or that voucher stays with the project and continuously funds that unit. That is one wonderful point about those. Say you do have a veteran that moves in there, say like myself, or many other veterans who are lower income that can't work, who have a lower disability rating. and are consistently going through a lot of medical care, who I've talked to a lot of these other veterans over the time who are driving these longer distances, 3-4 hours, got bad weather like we have right now. Get into a car wreck, trying to get there, bad conditions in the wintertime. An opportunity like Freedom's Path is a great place to have. Such an incident happened shortly after our last meeting of myself. Not a lot of fun. Like I've said before, I'd love to be living there myself. It'd be a great opportunity. And since the last meeting, I've personally run into roughly 23, 25, 26 veterans. I have fielded many, many phone calls from all over the state, because veteran outreach is what I do. Servicing my fellow veterans, taking care of them and their families is what I do day in and day out. Through the VFW and other people, just it's what I do. Taking care of my fellow veterans, it's my family, it's what I do, it's my passion, it's my drive. There is an unsurmountable need for the specialized type of housing. The HUD-VASH system through the VA and through the state of Montana itself is overwhelmed. There's still not a person working at the VA in Kalispell to field the applications. There's still only one person in Missoula trying to handle it, and they're also they have somebody in Fort Harrison. Well, how can you have somebody working the cases to try to help these people out that are in the Flathead Valley, which has the highest homeless population of veterans and at-risk veterans? Well, on any average given day, there's 300 plus homeless or at-need veterans and families. So, I didn't bring the right sheet up, but the one sheet where it had the percentage where Freedom's Path is at 0.70 on the vacancy. I know that's done for the demographic of the area. Freedom's Path, as I had put out before in the last meeting, would not be serving just the greater Helena area, but it's serving the entire state of Montana and Montana's veterans and families. So I just wanted to distinctly hit on that point and put emphasis on that. It's not just the greater Helena area, but it's the entire state of Montana and Montana's veterans and families that are in need. So that's, for me, the greatest importance of this project. It's not just basing a specific demographic area, but it is the entire state of Montana and Montana's veterans. And the other thing too is that, like I said in the last meeting too, it's not just a home, it's not just a house, but like I said, I'm saying we have the medical there at the VA, what have you, for the veterans, but the things that I was able to establish within the community to help take care of the families as well takes a huge burden off the veterans so that they can begin to heal and get on track themselves if they do have issues they need to work on, what have you. It's just one big, huge, warm fuzzy, if you want to put it that way. Get everybody rocking and rolling, back jamming, back on track, the way life should be. If they want to have that as their forever home, we're G to G. If they want to use a stepping stone to get rocking and rolling, get on to something bigger and better, we're G to G. I'm not going to say if, because I know today is that when. Thank you very much. God bless everybody. Let's rock and roll.
Thank you. And the last one on our list is Blackfeet 6 up in Browning. Oh, and we'll do Butte, sorry, right after Browning.
Good morning. Wow, a lot of great projects. I would like to take a second, I hope I'm not too much out of order, to acknowledge and thank all of our veterans for your service. Thank you, sir. I know every community has their veterans with unmet needs. I'm not going to go through our entire project, and like I did back in November, what I am going to do is expand on the need we have on the reservation. We currently have 17,178 Blackfeet members, of which 9,553 of them live on the reservation. That population, if not all, is dependent on Blackfeet housing to meet our housing needs. The 2010 census data showed that based on per capita income, out of 56 counties in Montana, Glacier County was ranked 54th, third lowest. The 2013 American Community Survey estimates that 40% of our population live at or below the poverty line. That's 2 times the state average. We have a waiting list of over 300 people. This compounds the need for affordable housing on the reservation, and it further establishes why the tax credit program is our only funding source for new development and assists for affordable housing. And I thank you for your consideration.
Come on in.
Hard job ahead of you.
Talking too much still.
Thank you.
I have one comment, and the reason is I read the Missoulian article yesterday. It was a very long article that there's the community of Browning is on the verge, according to the article, of bankruptcy. Any comment, effect if that should happen?
Sure. The Browning, I guess we call, if we expand the reservations different than, say, Great Falls, or if you have the town of Great Falls, the city of Helena, you figure that is the entire body of Helena. And Browning is unique that we have the town of Browning, which is a small nucleus of the town when the town was originally established, and it's basically based on fee land where the commercial buildings are and the schools. And there are probably about, I think we're running some numbers, there's roughly 100 to 200 residents that actually live within the area that is considered Browning. Outside of that area of, say, a 10-block radius is where the town limit is outside of town limits, and that's essentially development that's been all done on trust land, and is the nuclear. That's where the bulk of the housing for Browning is. The town of Browning, it's anytime you have 2 governments residing in one area, you have our tribal government and you have the town government, there are challenges that come. One of the challenges we had was there was a big water project that was completed, and with that there were payments that needed to be made, there were billing and maintenance issues, and the 2 governments were not able to come together and come to an agreement where who would accept the revenue and pay the bill and also the maintenance of it. And it was a clash of bodies. That essentially what it ended up being is the town, the tribe exercised their right to control the water. They funded the water program for various grants and loans, and they exercised their ability to take and run the operations, which is called Medicine Water. Without that revenue, the town of Browning was not able to continue operations. And it has been going on. It's been about a 2.5 year fight where it's been. Last week, it's not been official, but it was the discussion that the town was going to close their office doors on Friday. They were in charge of water billing and solid waste disposal within that area. Immediately Friday afternoon, the tribe and the tribal directors met to ensure that the services continue, water services, solid waste, and fire protection. There is a lawsuit going on in that sense, and I really can't speak to the legalities of it. However, as far as for our projects are outside of what we consider the nucleus or the town of Browning, and our projects have never been affected by them, although we have like to have a partnership with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And after we move back to Aspen 3 in Butte, we will take a short break.
Good morning, Tom Manshrek representing Aspen Place 3. Ravonda Stordahl, Executive Director of the Public Housing Authority of Butte, would have been here today to make the presentation, but she has a board meeting to prepare for. She did pass along her apologies for not doing so, but did indicate that the Public Housing Authority of Butte board is enthusiastically and universally in favor of developing this housing. This against the background of what other people have been saying. Meadowlands, the 48-unit senior we built about 4 years ago, is full with a wait list. Aspen Place 1 and 2, which this board knows from days gone by as Atherton 1 and 2, save and except for some site-related conditions, the $1.5 million we got from Montana Department of Commerce for home has been completely spent with a contingency left for some betterment. Aspen 1 and 2, 68 units of family 2 and family 3-bedroom units are also full with a wait list. Statistically, Butte and Butte-Silver Bow County remain the largest city in the state of Montana with the lowest percentage of tax credit units delivered since the program was instigated in 1986. We have a formula error in our application, which nobody can look to but me because I wrote it. And our costs and our capital stack sources came together in a very positive fashion. And so we were able to drop some of our 50% rents down to 40% rents. And shame on me, because in every other place we work, if some low rents are good, then more's better. And I should have put a limit in that formula, but we dropped a fair number of deep rent skewing points because we have too many deep skewed rents. What does that mean from a financial viability standpoint? Our capital stack is full. The debt service coverage is neither too thin nor too light. The equity pricing is in line, maybe even a little low with what we've been seeing around the country. Certainly not $1.15 like people are getting in San Francisco now, but the equity pricing is in line. And what does that mistake, which it is, what does that mistake really mean to Butte-Silver Bow? Butte-Silver Bow has 43% of its population paying more than 35% of their income in rent, has 35% of the population paying more than 50% of their income for rent. If you look at the differential between 50% rent and 40% rent and convert that into an hourly wage, we are able in those 4 units that were dropped down to rent to people that would make $2 an hour less than they would otherwise have to, a comment was made over here on minimum incomes for move-in purposes. $2 an hour is a really, really big number at that level of the workforce in America. Made a mistake. It's a good mistake. It's helpful for the residents of Butte-Silver Bow, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions from board members on any of the projects? If not, I think we will take about a 10-minute break. Okay, everyone, if we can start taking our seats, we'll get started.
So could I remind folks to sign the card for Mary if you'd like? Her brother-in-law passed away last week. I think we've done pretty good having folks do the sign-in sheet, but if you haven't, raise your hand. Rena will bring it to you post-haste.
Before we get started, is there any additional public comment? If so, you can just raise your hand and somebody can bring you a mic or step on up to the microphone. And also there's a sign-in sheet going around, and if you have not signed in, please do so that you can at least have your name down on the minutes for next month. Okay, board members, now the fun starts.
Mr. Chair, I want to speak to the audience. I want to talk to you all about, some of you are going to walk away happy today, and some of you are going to walk away disappointed. There's not enough money to go around. I'm going to encourage you all to join the Montana Coalition for Housing and Infrastructure so we can look for additional funding sources. This is a very difficult day as a board member because of what we have to face. We can't do it. We can't do it right. We know that many people will go unserved with housing that they can afford to rent. So please, as we work together, let's look for more money. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move adoption of the application from of Big Sky Villas, sponsored by the HRDC.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion amongst board members? Also, is Bob and Doug, are you still on the line?
This is Doug. Yeah, I'm still here.
Bob Gochi's still here.
Great, thank you. Any discussion on Big Sky Villas?
Well, I would just offer.
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I continue to, as I did in November, express my concern that we're seeing so many USDA projects coming in for tax credits, and I understand that we have a tremendous need to keep these units affordable. But I'd like to echo what Sheila said, and I don't know if it's appropriate for Montana Board of Housing or the affordable housing developers in this state. There needs to be a letter sent to USDA and to Congress that those units that were funded by 515 program funds, both loans and equity, and that have subsidy are hugely valuable. However, we cannot rehabilitate all of them, or we won't have any tax credits for new construction. So that's my only concern with Big Sky Villa, and I cannot support the motion.
Mr. Chair, I actually agree with Bob, but I think the residents that live at Big Sky Villa probably don't, and they probably know that this is a very needed project. I put it on the table first because I wanted to see us satisfy the nonprofit set aside. So obviously, because I made the motion, I'll be voting for this project.
And also, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but the small set-aside project is actually roughly 5.3 million. So we actually have enough funds for 2 of those 3, but that doesn't mean that we can't do all 3 if we so desired. We could just, the third one would just go into the general pool.
That's correct.
Okay, Paula, can we do roll call votes on all these, please?
Is it on? Okay. Pat?
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes.
Doug?
No.
Bob?
No.
JP?
Yes.
4-3.
Mr.
Pass.
Chairman? Mr. Chairman, are you ready?
Yes.
I would like to move approval in the small pool of Little John Apartments in Big Fork, Montana.
This is Doug, and I will second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there comments among board members?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to vote against this motion. These are all very worthy projects. We're not debating the merits. We're debating something else here. And I want to just say that I want to preserve this vote, the money for other projects, and so I'll be voting against this one.
Any other comments? Okay, Paula?
Pat?
Yes.
Sheila?
No.
Jeanette?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Bob?
No.
JP?
Yes.
4-3, yes.
Or 4-2.
Yes, 4-2. Sorry, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Let's see, Bruce, that puts us at the 20% set aside for.
Yeah, what the spreadsheet's showing you that is that we've met our nonprofit set aside. So, I mean, it doesn't mean you can't award projects that are nonprofitly sponsored. We're just not required to at this point. It also means that we have essentially used our small rural set aside. The Noble House will kind of fall into the general pool at this point. So if you so choose, you could fund that project in the general pool.
Thank you. Sheila?
Mr. Chair, I have a small project. No one will be surprised. I'd like to propose adoption of the application of Cascade Ridge. It's a fabulous project in Great Falls. They've done a great job. They've got a long waiting list. So I would propose that we adopt that.
The second?
This is Doug, and I will second the motion. So, Mr. Chairman, just, I mean, to remind folks too that this is an additional ask. This isn't an existing project. I just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Okay. Any additional comments from board members?
This is Doug, and we've watched that project come come along a long ways, and it is turning out to be a fantastic project in this area of the state. And for this amount here to finish it up seems to be a no-brainer to me. But
Paula?
Pat?
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes.
Doug?
yes.
Bob?
Yes.
JP?
Yes.
6-0.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move approval of Valley Vistas in Hamilton. It is my community. It is the one thing it misses in my community is low-income housing. I will disclose I am a member of the Ravalli County Board of Directors. There is a supportive letter here from our Executive Director, John Fills. That was not brought before the board in any way. We did not discuss this project in any way, shape, or form. That is an independent letter on our stationery, but I didn't know he was even writing it. Speaking of that, there's 177 kids that
Head Start does serve in the Bitterroot Valley. 60 of them are in Hamilton, and 8 of those families live in these units. I've toured and walked through the property. I've gone up in the hallways. It is in dire need. Its useful end is almost here. I would urge support, please.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments on Valley Vistas? Seeing none, Paula?
Pat? Sheila?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Bob?
No, for the same reason before. I'm trying to support new construction.
JP?
Yes.
5-1.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Pat.
I would like to move approval of the application for Freedom's Path. I'm moving approval of this for several reasons. First, as you know, I'm the first to argue that scoring doesn't control and that it basically is for threshold purposes, but I would note that Freedom's Path scored very well. Secondly, I'm very impressed with the public support for this project. Not only do we have mayors of both the cities of Helena and Missoula, but also Lewis and Clark County Commission. But I think I'm more impressed with the service providers out there who see veterans on a daily basis, such as NAMI, God's Love, Disability Rights, and the United Way of Lewis and Clark County. Thirdly, as you heard Adam Gratzer say, there's 42 HUD VASH vouchers available for this project. And secondly, I think the Veterans Administration is very much in support of this project because of the $2.5 million demonstrated that they've put in, that they're willing to put into the project. Lastly, and I think probably more importantly to me is, I think we all recognize that veterans homelessness is a national problem, and Montana is not isolated from that. We have that problem as well. This project would serve not just Helena and Lewis and Clark County, but serves the state of Montana and serves our veterans statewide. So I very much support this project.
We have a second?
This is Doug, and I'll second it. And I'm making the second based on what has already been said, that this is not necessarily a Helena project, but a state project. And I think it's well worthy of our consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's any question that we've had a rocky relationship backwards with this project. I credit Freedom Fund for staying the course, for being diligent, for coming forward, improving your project. I'm going to support this motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I think it's been interesting to watch this develop. And I am a huge supporter of the VASH program as well. My concern with this project, and I'm not sure if it's shared by everybody else, is it's not so much a statement. I mean, we all support the veterans, but I'm troubled by the combined soft costs and developer fee on this project and the operating costs. And I don't know if that's a function of them paying utilities, but I would hope that every single dollar can be utilized for the veterans and not so much for-profit entities that are involved. Just as a comment, but I will support it.
Any other comments? Paula?
Pat?
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
JP.
Yes.
6-0, yes.
Where are we, Mr. Chairman, on our total allocation?
Bob, we have a balance to allocate of $8,966,300.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to propose adoption of the application for the Red Fox in Billings. We were presented in November with a map that shows Billings is very, very underserved. And this application appeared before us before. We all wanted to fund it earlier, so I would promote the Commission adopting this application.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for Red Fox. Is there any additional comments from board members?
Pat,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
JP.
Yes.
6.
That's still only 6-0.
6-0.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm going for one more. Very worthy project, the Courtyard in Kalispell. Hard work, lots and lots of brain damage over this one. Just deserves to be funded, and Kalispell is one of those relatively underserved. It's a really fabulous project in my estimation. So I urge your adoption of Courtyard Apartments in Kalispell.
We have a second on Courtyard. We're absent a second. Do we have a different motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate the Blackfeet project, Blackfeet Home 6. They continue to set the standard as far as trying to meet the needs of the people up there, and their costs are low, their operating costs are low. They're putting a lot of effort, and unlike a lot of other communities, there just aren't many other resources. We're all working to change that, but I think it's a worthy application.
I'm going to increase the size of this, and I believe what I'm looking at is that there's not a full amount left to give them, is what I believe I'm seeing here.
Yes, that does appear to be the case. There is just over $1 million short to do the full funding for the
I'm going to delete this, and then we'll be able to see what the, so we could fund them $5,570,420. I'm going to just put that number in here and then wait for the vote or whatever.
Do we have my motion? Do we have a second on the?
I'll second it.
Is there a discussion among board members?
Well, yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned that if we approve this, that the Blackfeet won't be able to go ahead with this project because they don't have sufficient credits, and then we will be denying some other worthy projects that are before us.
Mr. Chairman, I share Pat's concerns. I think I willy-nilly suggest that they can, without information that will work, we could be getting these credits back. I support the idea of a project that could fully fund.
I think this project, because it's single-family detached, lends itself to partial allocation. So I will support Bob's motion.
Mr. Chairman, could we perhaps hear from the Blackfeet representative about this?
Hi, I'm Alicia with Travoy in Kansas City. Because this is a single-family home project, with the credits allocated, we would just build less homes. We could build we'll just try and do the math in my head. I would take it back to our development team, but I think that the need is there, and the need is so great, and we could just build a couple of less homes, and the project would be entirely successful.
Mr. Chairman, I think if this does get approved, it's going to have to be conditional on underwriting for it, please, for staff's sake.
So Bob and Sheila, can we do a friendly amendment to the motion?
Yes.
To allow that to be contingent upon underwriting.
Of course.
Other comments? Okay, Paula?
Pat,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Jeanette,
No.
Doug,
No.
Bob,
Yes.
JP,
No.
3-3.
3-3, motion fails. So we are back to the 5 million.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose credits be awarded to Northstar and Wolf Point. Does that fit in our numbers?
The balance we have is 5,570,420, and they're asking for 5,900,000. I'm going to type it in. We'll show how short they are. $329,580 is what they would be short. Can you see that right here is where my math is?
So, Mr. Chairman, can we see if we get a second to this motion first?
Do we have a second on the Wolf Point project?
I'll second it. This is Bob. I'll second it.
Now, Mr. Chairman, may I request someone from the Wolf project to speak, Jean?
Mr. Chairman, Gene Lure with GL Development for Northstar. We'd be willing to try to make it work. It's a difficult project. Our budget was predicated on bids that were received from the previous project. This number of credits makes about a $280,000, $290,000 difference, a reduction in our budget out of 6.1 million or so. I can't guarantee we'd make it work. It's a 128 unit project. It really does depend on the bids that come in and what our ability might be to raise additional funds. And I'm reasonably confident that might be possible. But, I can't stand here and tell you it's a slam dunk.
And Mr. Chairman, we'd also ask that it be conditional on the underwriting of staff. And for informational sakes, we have done this before, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But we have to go through the numbers.
Okay. Jeanette and Bob, is that
That's
an acceptable amendment to the motion?
Yeah.
Is there any additional comments from board members? Seeing none. Paula?
Pat,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Doug,
No.
Bob,
Yes.
JP,
Yes.
5-1, yes.
Unfortunately, that concludes the amount of money that we have available to us this year.
Mr. Chair and Bruce, is it possible for us to do contingent motions based on the fact that we might get returned credits from the Wolf Point project?
I believe you did that last year, so yes.
Sheila?
I'm taking another run at it. I really believe that Courtyard Apartments in Kalispell deserves our funding for this, and it's just such a piece of the affordable housing community out there. I don't want to let this one go, so I'm going to put this one back out there to move that the contingent on the refunding of tax credits from a project that does not go through, that this project would be the first to gain those credits, Courtyard Apartments.
Second.
Okay, contingent award to Courtyard Apartments. The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any comments from board members? Seeing none. Paula?
Pat,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Bob,
Oh, for the same reason, no.
JP,
Yes.
5-1, yes.
So there's, depending on underwriting of the Wolf Point Northstar project, if for some reason that did not work, Courtyard Apartments would then be awarded the roughly $3.5 million, which leaves another $1.5 million. So board members kind of start piecing things together, or we can leave that as a carryover for next year. Or it's possible that it's never there to begin with. So.
So one of the questions we had this year was on the contingent allocation, kind of how long is that in effect? And what how we read it from last year basically was that it was contingent until the next round. So it would be basically in place until January 1st of 2017. Would that be correct, Craig? How long, because after the December 31st, 16 deadline, you know, any credits then automatically become 17 credits. So that would effectively be the length of the contingency. It would go away after December 31st of 16. So I put that on record, I don't know that we need to amend the motion or anything. I think I just wanted to put that on record as that's the way it's going to be handled.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that would be my understanding.
Mr. Chairman, also to clarify, the contingent award to Courtyard would be funded if credits are returned from any source or only from, in case the Northstar development does not go forward.
Mr. Chair, I meant my motion to say any source, just for clarification.
Okay, well, that brings to close the 2015 tax credit allocation with 8 projects that were successfully funded. And I'd like to especially thank the other 12 who, unfortunately, there's just not enough funding to go around. So please follow up with Sheila.
So I know many of you will probably take off, but if you want to stick around, we have lunch coming. We'd be happy to provide you guys lunch if you'd like that. Feel free. We do have a couple more things on the agenda that'll take a few minutes here, but shouldn't be too long. So. All right, so since we do have some more on the agenda here, if you guys want to chat out in the hall, that would be fine. So the next item on our agenda is another multifamily item, and it concerns Sweetgrass Commons and a substantial change to their application. Just an FYI, Sweetgrass was part of the letter of intent group and the full application crew. They did have to, and they did withdraw their application because they were slightly over the per unit maximum limitations. So I do appreciate the willingness of Andrea and Heather to step up to the table and really work with us kind of when we come to these kind of difficult conversations. So basically, Sweetgrass Commons is a project that's in Missoula. The project was awarded credits in 2015, and it is currently a 26-unit project. The developer is proposing to add 1 unit. The additional unit will be a benefit to the property. I was reading, now I can't see it. The additional unit cost is raising the total cost approximately $100,000. Just one other substantial thing that staff did notice, and you know, we'll let Heather maybe address this issue, was that of the common space, about and the original app was 8,567 square feet, has now gone up to 17,552. The original application described a basement in the property or possible an underground parking garage, and the current construction plans include an underground parking garage, so that is one addition. The memo from the developer is attached, and the staff submits these changes for board consideration.
Heather?
Yes, thanks, Bruce, for having some entertaining conversations over the last few weeks regarding Sweetgrass. As the board knows, prior to deliberation, we did withdraw our application. We recognized an issue in our underwriting. We got construction bids back 2 days before the applications were due, and so it wasn't my oversight in our submission where we were several $1,000s over per unit on the application and the threshold, and we'll talk about that at the QAP the end of the month. And it's legitimate. We recognize it. We withdrew the application, but we also took the time to really dig into Sweetgrass and find out what was going on. There were, just from the bidding environment, you guys should know, I think there were a couple projects came in for additional credits, and I know why Gene is nervous about his Northstar project as well. The construction industry, we had heard there were going to be big spikes in construction costs, and there were several projects that bid that were 20% higher than originally estimated. Ours was only 14% higher, but it was still a pretty significant jump. So we worked closely, put the application together, submitted it, and in the meantime have been working through the project, finding cost savings and those pieces. And I guess I just wanted to let you guys know that while we withdrew the application, it was also an opportunity to really look at the project and consider what do we need to do, because the unique part about writing an application in 2015 and then turning around and writing in 2016, as I'm sure some other people in the room recognize, that you're looking at a project through a different lens each time. And when we looked at our unit counts and we looked at our schematic drawings to our refined construction documents, well, one, the square footage, we could actually calculate a double-loaded garage was much larger than the basement we'd been proposing in schematics, and we could actually carve out the units and the circulation and all those pieces. So that was the second component of one of the clarifications that we wanted to say on the square footage. We just had actual working documents that met code and all those things that, so that was one clarification we wanted to make. But honestly, the biggest thing for us was we looked at the market study, and we went from a need of just over 1,000 units in Missoula to 1,700 units of the same type in that year. And so while sure it fixes our mathematical issue, it was a better use of credits and all the resources that had gone to the table for us to add. We had kind of a lounge area that was a little bigger than it needed to be, and we could take a one-bedroom unit and turn it into 2 studios. So basically, that's the request you have in front of you, is that we wanted to make it a 27-unit project instead of 26. One more toward the demand. That's a 700-unit difference in Missoula, but every little drop in the bucket counts. And so what's in front of you at this point, we have another agenda item to talk more about Sweetgrass, is that we would like to be able to, regardless of any financial outcome, request for operational stability, need, and all the best uses of dollars to make this a 27-unit project instead of a 26-unit project. So I'm available for questions on that or anything else in that thick packet you got on Sweetgrass.
So I think, the staff is just looking for a motion to approve their change in the project so they can move forward, and then we'll consider their second request, which is, if any, a contingent allocation if any credits return, because they do have a funding gap also. Anyways, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to support the changes.
Second.
Any questions for Heather from the board? Paula, can you do a roll call, please?
Cass?
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
JP?
Yes.
6-0, yes.
So the second request is basically the application they did have in, they do still have a gap. We originally allocated this project, credits, was it last year? In 2015.
Yes.
And so, they're asking basically for an additional credit allocation, which would line up behind the Courtyard contingent award, if the board chose to do that.
Mr. Chair, I would move adoption of this proposal.
Second, Bob.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any questions?
It's out of order. I was just going to speak a little bit to this component. While I gave the dissertation on 27 units, it factors in that while we're under the line item asking for additional credits, we're actually simply asking for the credits the balance of the credits from our 2015 request. So the way the project was initially underwritten, the way the credits were assessed in 2015, it would be simply for the credits from our original ask and no more. We've been able to come back with soft funds and cost savings and working with the contractor after going through the formal federal procurement process utilizing home funds. We were now able to really refine the ask. And so if credits were to be returned to come from another source, we would greatly appreciate getting our original ask of $430,000 in credits in total. Really, it's only 33,061 credits that we need. Currently, we are under construction, and we are working to meet our 2015 deadlines and the need of Missoula. Homeward has put in a gap coverage with the tax credit investor that we would very much like to see eliminated from the project because it's borrowed money and short-term money on our end, but we are committed to the project and making sure that it comes to fruition regardless, and we will figure out a way to make this happen. Also looking to find out about placed in service dates and credits, and if for any reason there's nothing returned and everybody gets to move forward, we might come back and ask for these 33,000 in credits next year if the tax credit investor would allow. So while it's conditional based on a return or another source of credits coming in, we appreciate that, and obviously math that works out whether we're in sequence before or after Courtyard. I'm not sure that matters, but we really appreciate your consideration on this.
So just to clarify too, this would be from any credits returned, and the contingency would last through December 31st, where then they would automatically become 17 credits after that. So kind of just the same deal as we have with Courtyard.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from board members? Paula?
Pat?
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
JP?
Yes.
6-0, yes. Thank you.
There is your so far non-existent credits.
You know, the last part of the multifamily area is the dashboard, which you guys get every month. I think you can look through that at your leisure, and but there's some really good updates on kind of the projects that are in process right now. I encourage you to look at those. You know, staff does a real good job on keeping in touch with these guys and finding out where they're at and helping out at least where we can. And then also on our compliance monitoring. I'm going to leave this probably for our next meeting and let Mary go through it in detail at that point if she so chooses, but please at your leisure look at that.
Just for the record, Bruce, I, as a board member of how many years now, love this dashboard report. It is really, really nice. Really appreciate it.
Jeanette, that's appreciated.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add to that. I thanked several of the staff members personally for how professional the present materials are for the board. Now with the numbered pages and the extra computers up here, et cetera, I'm really impressed how far we've come.
No, thank you, Pat. And I do want to give a shout out to Stacy, Paula, Penny, Ashley. They're a huge part of that, as well as are their managers. Who? Oh, I'm sorry, Todd's behind my line of view here. Sorry, I didn't do that on purpose. So, you know, and the other ones too. You know, Rena's here helping out, but yeah, we put in a lot of time, and hopefully it's noticeable. And I think it went pretty well today. So.
Yes, I think this is probably the most complete packet that we've had in the past 12 years.
Be careful what you ask for, right?
But it's also been the most helpful. There's like probably more information than we all need at times, but it's easy to find, and it was a great help. So thank you to everyone who put that 564 pages together.
And just one other thing, I know most people have left, but just that we have the QAP session next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday, down in Bozeman at the Grand Tree. Everyone is welcome, and I hope that we see you all there. The registration is still available online. You can still get hotel rooms. So I probably should have mentioned that before everyone vacated the premises. But for those of you that are still hearing those on the phone, I just wanted to mention that.
So to wrap up here, you got the executive wrap up, and Stacey, are you first, or is Mary Palkovich is first? But I believe she had to run. So Stacey, can you do Penny an update, and then we'll do Penny.
Good afternoon, almost, board members, Chairman Crowley. It's been my pleasure this last few months to take a look at our strategic planning efforts for the upcoming 2016, 2017 years. What you'll find online is perhaps a copy of the strategic planning work that we did in the month of November, and I've organized those line items that you have put together by programs that are most commonly associated with how we have the Board of Housing structured. So when you have an opportunity to review those line item numbers, those line items, you'll be able to take a look at what we'll work on in the month of March for strategic planning efforts, as well as look at the elements that you have under consideration for efforts to move forward. The program managers will also have their program strategic planning documents, and will be prepared for those discussions as well.
So Stacey, do they have copies of this, or are we going to be sending these to them so they have some time to look at them?
I think we'll send it to them immediately after this meeting.
That sounds good.
The only difference between what you received in November and this is just the order of items, and it's based on program order. So the first item, I believe, is multifamily. Okay, and all the items related to the multifamily program are listed in that area. Questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Penny, marketing update, and do you have a microphone? Yep. We can't let her break the rules.
Do I need one? Do I really need one?
You have to, yes.
Okay, so what I just thought I would do, I'm just trying to point out to people, if you do want to register or find out more information about the QAP, go to our website, housing.mt.gov, and then on this horizontal line here, you can find most of the things I'm going to talk about. So under training is where I've clicked, and you can see the QAP information, click to register, etc. I'm starting to list additional trainings here. Some developers might be interested in basic furnace training, etc. And then this is an additional LIHTC training, the KK one. Just keep this page in mind. And also then there's the conference. This is my draft attempt. I've got some information about our statewide housing conference, which will be in Kalispell next year, May 23, 24, and 25, and we're all working very hard pulling that together. It's going to be a great conference. I would like to also mention that there is a Montana Financial Education Coalition Conference, which is a close tie-in to the work that we all do. That will be held in Helena on February 24th, and that's at the Red Lion or the Radisson now. That will be a great conference. We have attracted Holly Petraeus to be our main speaker, and there'll be several other wonderful topics there. Kelly did mention the QAP, January 26th and 7th in Bozeman. The day before that, on January 25th at 4 p.m., we all are going to go attend the Larkspur Commons groundbreaking, and I've been working with Andrea on that, just what we can do to help. As I've been talking to her, I want to remind all of you that we are willing to help make these groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings a real celebration for the community. Let's turn around the attitude about what this housing is and what a celebration it is. And I will admit that I stole that from the Crow Agency when they did that ceremony, the groundbreaking. I mean, let's all jump in and do that. So that'll be a great occasion. The new Lieutenant Governor will be in attendance, and we're looking forward to that. And then one last thing, I'd like to mention that the Housing Coordinating Team meeting is this coming Friday. You can also find that on this, this place I showed you on our website, January 22nd, this Friday at 9 a.m. I always offer that as a webinar so people do not have to travel. We've got some big things coming up. We've got a great program for that meeting, and then there's big projects coming up there. So if you haven't joined the HCT before, come on in. It's very informal, and you'll fit right in. We're doing some wonderful things. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Penny.
So just to wrap up, I wanted to talk about the meeting schedule, which I do not believe is exactly correct on your agendas unless we got that changed. But we are having a conference call webinar meeting in February. And I'll kind of explain exactly why we're doing what we're doing. We're having the roundtable discussions on the QAP on the 26th and 27th. As soon as we get back from there, we are going to put together the draft allocation plan for your review to put out for public comment at that February meeting. So Greg, we'll be working with you that end of that last week of January, hopefully you're around, to kind of make sure we've got all of our language tweaks in place. We'll put that out in the board packet. You guys will consider it at the February meeting. You'll put it out for public comment at that point. We'll have a hearing so people can make formal public comments to the plan, and then we will discuss that also at our March meeting. So, and then you guys will consider any changes or any adjustments you want to make, and then you will approve the plan for 2017. After that, it will need to go to the governor for his approval. It'll then now need to be put out for administrative rule hearings and follow that process. And really the theory is to get this thing ready so when we submit letters of intent sometime summer, fall, we have an approved plan to follow. So that's kind of what's
Bruce?
going on. Yeah.
Sorry, may I add one bit of information for that? While I'm here on the website, I did want to point out that under this, there's a public comment opportunity. This is where you'll find that announcement, and I will be placing a fillable format for people to input their public comment easily as well.
And the date on the February meeting will be February 8th. The date on the March meeting is March 14th.
I have another announcement that I forgot to make. Can I butt in and do that? I apologize. I meant to announce, this is an announcement of something that has to do with housing, but it is not board related. I'm working with a group in Helena here, Todd and I are. It's called Challenge Helena, and it's really a great format. I won't go into detail, but we have been doing TED-like talks and encouraging public participation. We're covering the basic reasons for poverty. So, I mean, we've been covering homelessness, childhood hunger, et cetera. Our next topic is going to be housing. And we have invited one of our board members, Sheila Rice, to be one of the TED Talk speakers, as well as Jacob Kuntz, the executive director of Helena Habitat for Humanity. So it'll be a double header, and that will be the evening of our board meeting. March 14th, we'll come back here to Helena. Anyone's invited, 6 p.m. at the Aux. We're really going to be able to do things differently than in an official capacity and teach the public why housing is such a big issue. Thank you.
So the rest on the dashboard, you can go ahead and read at your leisure. We have lunch here, so please eat before you go. We got more than enough food for everyone. Eat for 2 or 3 if you don't mind. And that's all we got.
So maybe we should add points to the QAP for those people that stay for lunch. But what I really want to know is, where is that March 14th meeting? Penny told me last night and I've already forgotten.
In Butte. So the February will be a webinar only. March will be in Butte, and we'll let you know the details closer.
Okay. Do we have any final comments before we adjourn for the day? Seeing none, thank you all for coming.